Firstly, I'd just like to thank the organisers for giving me the opportunity to present here today and to share what we have learned from running the Dry Labs Real Science Network. And the talk's really divided into two parts. Firstly, what we've done so far and what has the community taught us. And then to finish up, where do we see the network going in the future? So to start, I'd better quickly define what Dry Labs Real Science is for those that haven't heard of it. It's a community of practice that has been meeting online since the start of May, and it was set up in the face of the challenges thrown up by the COVID-19 pandemic to discuss how the life sciences could continue to offer lab provision when we weren't allowed in physical labs. There have been several other networks set up for chemistry and physics, but they all share a common feature, and that is the sharing of ideas and collaborative teaching. In terms of the outcomes of this network, the biggest thing for me personally, and I think many others, has been the learning opportunities this community of practice has offered. And really, that was all I was looking for when I sent out a handful of emails to a few people, including David and Ian, asking if we could have a chat about potential ideas to provide labs during the COVID-19 era. The network obviously expanded far beyond this, and I think more than just being a learning opportunity, it now offers academics a feeling that they are part of a supportive community. The challenges of lab provision in the COVID era are far too large for any individual at any individual institution to solve. Indeed, it's probably too big for any group of institutions to solve. But what this network has allowed is for academics to offer their piece of the overall solution, which actually has many different perspectives, and there are multiple opinions on how best to approach this. Perhaps more importantly, it has really brought out the best of the higher education teaching community, with a willingness to share ideas and to collaborate. And I know from my own participation, I now have a list of ideas that I want to explore or have passed on to colleagues where I think it might help them. One of the most striking things has been the innovation that has been shared. The range of ideas and hugely innovative and inventive uses of technology has been inspiring. And I'm wondering whether the enforced need to come up with new ideas is actually going to be a watershed moment in higher education teaching provision, where academics who perhaps have previously been confined by teaching metrics such as student feedback scores or module outcomes might be given carte blanche and be able to show their true creativity and ultimately drag education into the 21st century, because it hasn't really changed in the last 500-600 years. We're only really starting out on that journey towards blended learning degrees, and there's a long way to go. But the range of ideas that have been shared can be highlighted if we look at capstone or final year projects, which in most institutions has largely been laboratory-based to date. And with the restrictions that are going to be in place come October, alternatives are desperately and will desperately be needed. And Dave Lewis at Leeds University has done some fantastic work sharing ideas and how-to guides for a whole range of non-lab-based projects. But final year projects are only part of the picture. And the challenges of large undergraduate classes are also a consideration. From what has been shared across the networks, the approach can largely be divided into 4 categories. These are videos, animations, simulations, and the provision of data sets. And these were the approaches that we were using back in March when we had to shut the physical campuses. And they will continue to be the ones that we use in September. But they will have been refined over the last 6 months as we've had time to consider their usage. The key considerations for these, though, remain the same. We need to clearly identify what the learning outcomes of the lab sessions are, to map out how these resources help us support these outcomes, and to figure out the best use of what limited time we may have in the physical laboratory to ensure students are gaining the hands-on experience that is so key to life science disciplines. I think the key message here is that these resources are a supplement to lab experience, not a replacement. And Ian Turner's produced a fantastic talk going into these different techniques with examples of how they can be used. And that video is available on the Lecture Remotely website, which is a fantastic resource for students and teachers alike for supporting remote teaching. We've been immensely lucky to have the support of the team behind this website in allowing us to take over a small corner of this great resource to share our own resources. And these include all the talks that have been delivered in the network so far, a series of how-to guides that presenters have created to give a one-page snapshot of how we can set up and deliver projects, and some infographics with free resources that span a wide range of different topics. For those interested in the final year projects element, Dave Lewis's resources are also hosted on this site, so I would urge you to check out this website if you're interested in learning more. That leads me into the final bit of this talk, which is where next. So, although COVID-19 has thrown up a lot of challenges, it has also created a lot of opportunities. And I think it is important that we hold on to all the great resources, innovation and learning that has happened so far, and don't simply revert back to type once we're allowed back into lecture theatres and labs. There is an opportunity to create blended learning degrees here, and all the literature that I've read suggests that blended approaches are more powerful learning opportunities than their individual components. So we can reimagine higher education to better serve the 21st century graduates. And that really is where you all come in. So David, Ian and I have started something. Several more people jumped on board and they've contributed their ideas. We have a platform for sharing resources. But without the continued support of the community, this really becomes a flashmob science event and it will ultimately peter out. That would be a great shame because we all feel that there is still a huge amount to learn and share, especially as we move towards the first real academic year of prepared remote delivery. So with that in mind, if you are interested in being part of this community and have not already done so, please email me so I can add you to the email distribution list. Make sure you register for the next seminar, which we will be hosting on Wednesday the 9th of September, and I'll be emailing details of that round shortly. And if you have any ideas or projects that you'd be willing to share, please let one of us know. And that doesn't have to be necessarily a talk. It could be a how-to guide or an infographic of resources specifically to your area of teaching. Longer term, David, Ian and I have a couple of aims for this network. The first is that we would like to try and create a community discussion area where people can search for fellow academics, engage with them or collaborate with them on projects. So if anyone has any suggestions on the best way to facilitate this, then please do let us know. Secondly, we are considering an annual online conference focusing on innovative lab provision. So again, if people think this would meet an unmet need and would be interested in such an event, please do let us know. Lastly, I just need to thank everybody that has made this network the success it is. And I hope that this is just the start of something bigger and better. Thank you very much for listening. I'll be more than happy to take any questions at the end of this session.